Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 3:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Hope you got everything you wanted for Christmas. What a great time of year. Coming up on the program, Reagan Reese is going to be with us, the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. She'll look back at Joe Biden's final calendar year in office, thank goodness. Thomas Katzenacci is here at 4 o'clock from the Washington Free Beacon. He discusses China with us and the way it's meddling in the United States. And then Mary Margaret Olahan is here at 4:30 from the Daily Wire. We'll get her reaction to so much of the crazy LGBTQ plus agenda. It's still continuing. And also, why did the Women's March become the People's March? Why do they want to exclude women from that? Mary Margaret tells us. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll be joined by a high schooler named Kellen Habibalehi. And Kellen just joined the Republican State Central Committee in Virginia with the Virginia High School Republicans. A lot to talk about there. What do young people think of the grand old party, and how have the views changed? We'll talk to Kellen about that at 5. And we'll talk to you, of course, as always, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I do hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I did. It was so nice. My daughter is 10 years old now, which means we've arrived at the phase where she doesn't like the video camera on her as she's stepping down to see the presents, opening the presents. There's a lot of stop, and I'm like, and so which is great because she might not recognize it now, but years from now we'll be able to look back at all of these and say, okay, here you were when you were adorable. Here's when you were walking, you were toddling up to the presents, you were checking the Christmas tree, and you were so amazed you didn't even notice the camera. And then and then you take her through each successive year, and then you get to 10 years old when she's saying stop, which is awesome, which was a lot of fun. It was a really nice Christmas morning, great Christmas day, great Christmas dinner. We had a nice dinner. This is the first time I've ever done a beef tenderloin. This is a big deal in our house, and you don't want to mess it up. I've never made a beef tenderloin before, so I was following Chef Andrew Gruel. You know him? He's very popular on X. He is a smart chef. He's one of these television chefs. He's not only does he have restaurants in California, but he's been on Food Network, all these places. But he was offering free advice to everybody on how to cook their meats this week. If you're making a prime rib, here's what you do. And so I started following the prime rib advice earlier in the week. I was like, well, they're both beef, so maybe this is how I should start the tenderloin. And I did the dry rub. I got the salt all over the beef tenderloin, and then I put it in the refrigerator. We went about 48 hours in advance with the dry rub. I noticed a lot of people were saying 24 hours at the very least. And just throw that bad boy in the fridge, uncovered, after you dry it. Of course, get all those juices off the side of it. Let it go, and then put it in the oven at the lowest possible temperature that the oven has a couple of hours before you're set to eat. So usually, depending on the size of that roast, like 2 to 3 hours. And we did. And then we just slow cooked it all the way through. Again, all Chef Andrew Gruel. Thank God for this guy making this advice. And maybe you know how to do this. Don't judge me for it. This is my first swing. And then at the end of it, we raise the temperature on the oven to the maximum temperature that it has. And we finish that bad boy off for like 3 to 5 minutes just to give it a nice little crust. You call that a reverse sear. And holy crap, was that good. Holy crap. I even put I melted some butter and some garlic and got a little bit of spice on there. I put it on there. Just before the crust phase, I put it all over the meat. And mwah. It turned out so good. I was so nervous because I don't know if you've been to a supermarket lately. Have you seen the price of beef tenderloin? It is an expensive cut of meat. Just to be crystal clear about beef tenderloin, it's literally filet mignon. It's just a bigger version of filet. So you're buying a really, really nice cut of meat, and you don't want to screw it up. That's all I knew. Don't screw this up, Vincent. I call myself Vincent when I'm saying don't screw this up. But I just didn't want to, and thank goodness. Thank the good Lord, it went okay. Hey, Corey and Ganamore, can you hear my voice? Can you talk to us here?
I do. Hey, Vince.
Hey, okay. Your mic's a little hot. Let's bring that down a little bit. Corey, how was your Christmas?
It was great. Yeah, I went home to New Jersey, spent the day with the family on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. It was just an absolute blast. My brother's family, my sister's family, my parents, we had a prime rib ourselves. Came
Wow.
out great, perfect medium rare. And we too, actually, I saw Andrew Grell's recommendations on Twitter. We decided to unpack it the night before, salt it all up, sit in the
Yeah.
refrigerator for 24 hours, and it came out great.
Are you a horseradish family with the prime rib?
I am a horseradish guy. Not everybody is. We do a little bit of the au jus, I think is the right way to say it. But yeah, horseradish. We had some sweet potatoes, vegetables, and a whole lot of desserts. We also had the famous in Ganamort seafood salad as an appetizer. So. Actually, I'm glad you're not in the same room as me right now, because I have some seafood salad here. There is so much garlic smell emanating from it. Thankfully, you don't have to be subjected to that, Dave, either.
So wait, so a couple of things on the horseradish. Do you eat like the flaky stuff, or do you eat the creamy horseradish?
We had creamy last night. I think I prefer the flaky stuff. The flaky to cream ratio. To me, I like it spicier than most, so it's got to be like burning hot.
Yeah, I was doing the creamy last night. I added a little bit to the beef tenderloin. The problem is the ratio has to be right, as kind of you're pointing to. Otherwise, you start shooting flames out of your nose when you're eating horseradish.
It's like wasabi.
I don't understand that particular spice. I really love it, but I don't even get how it works with me chemically. It's just an amazing thing. And then what was the seafood salad. Okay, so your seafood salad, I think you sent a picture of it to me and my wife.
Yeah.
Or at least to my wife, to Allison.
It's pretty aggressive. It's we make it about once a year. It's calamari, squingili, shrimp, and a whole bunch of olive oil and lemon and garlic and celery and parsley.
Yes,
and just pounds and pounds and pounds of this. And it's my favorite. It's a once a year type of thing, but I stuff my face with that for leftovers for days. So
I am the most conservative seafood consumer imaginable. Meaning, like I've very basic tolerance for seafood. Like I'll eat. I was a kid. I ate fish sticks. That was fine. I'll eat tuna. Tuna works for me. You know, some people call it ahi to be fancy. That's what I'll eat. The closest I will come with sushi is tuna. I'll do tuna. That's about it. But I'm not really a seafood guy. Shrimp. I like shrimp. You can basically heat up shrimp any way you like, and I'll consume that. But the vat of seafood that you prepare looks like something out of a Godzilla movie. It looks like sea creatures attacking one another. And in the end, what they don't realize is they will be attacked by you, Corey and Ganamort.
Yes, exactly. You have to eat it because we have. I've got 4 nieces, 1 nephew. The older ones like it, but the younger ones are all scared of all the squid that's in it. It looks like spiders. So my favorite move is to hang it from the front of your mouth. There's like this stuck in your teeth or whatever, and they all get scared. They run away. But the older ones, they enjoy it, and they'll grow up to like it. You kind of have to in my family. It's one of those things you must enjoy.
That's so funny.
So
well, good for you. That's awesome. Do you have any traditions in the family for Christmas? Is it the conventional? Everybody wakes up, Christmas tree has some gifts under it. What's the deal?
Yeah, well, that's what it was when we grew up. Now, my brother has kids, my sister does, and they do that tradition with the tree and all that. My parents don't do a tree anymore. It's kind of like a kid's thing, in my opinion. I live by myself. I don't have the storage space.
There was no tree at your parents' house.
There's like a little tiny plug-in thing that's like maybe 2.5 feet tall. So
the Charlie Brown Christmas tree?
That's basically all we do at this point. And then obviously the tables decorated, Christmas decorations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Does your family have strong views on real trees versus artificial? It sounds like if they did, those views are over.
We did growing up. We cut a tree down every single year, and my brother and sister still do that. It's kind of the experience. Right after Thanksgiving, my mom's birthday is like the next day or 2 days later, something like that. So it was always a tradition. The first weekend after Thanksgiving, we would cut down a tree as a family. And it was fun. It was, It was great as a kid. Now I don't really feel like doing that much anymore.
Was it your dad's job to cut the tree down? Was he using a handsaw? Was he on the ground cutting this thing down, or what was the deal?
Yeah, we brought a handsaw, bring your own, and usually it was my responsibility or my brother's, and it would always be a big argument among the 3 kids, which tree, and my sister always took forever, and we'll all be freezing our butts off, and it took way too long. It sounds like a great, fun day, ends up being a bunch of arguing among siblings, because you're taking too long. No, I like that one. I like that one.
So in my house, we used to do the real tree, and we'd go to the Christmas tree farm. We'd go somewhere in the country of Virginia, and we'd find a tree. And because I am the only man in my house, I was basically tasked with all of the labor for the entire experience. So it was typically my wife, my daughter, and my mother-in-law, who lived with us for years. We would all go to a Christmas tree farm together. The girls would pick out the perfect tree. You're right. It would take a long time. It would be about how much coverage it had on any given side, whether or not there were needles that were already dying within, all of that. And certainly the perfect height was essential. And then I was tasked with lying on the ground, cutting this bad boy down, dragging it back to wherever they do the transaction. And they had a great time. They had a wonderful time every year. And there they are with their hot chocolates, warming their hands, their gloves, their hats. I was so happy for them, you know? And so what we've done ever since is at some point you graduate from the tree cutting experience and you're like, all right, let's just buy a live tree and we'll try and get it from whatever the local charity is. You know, the Knights of Columbus, we'll go support them. And then the next step, and I don't know if everybody graduates in the same direction out of convenience. I went full-blown artificial, lights already on it. It takes 4 seconds for me to set it up. It's big. It fits perfectly. I never have to wonder whether or not it's going to fit perfectly in the room. It always fits every year. And so far, so good. And I'm so glad. My wife was the holdout. I am so glad that I was able to convince her. I'm telling you, the artificial tree is the way to go. Let's do it. And I won her over. One of my victories. Usually I'm the one who has to be won over, and she leads me around by the nose. But on this one, Corey, this was a big victory, and I'm so happy with it.
Congratulations. I am pro fake tree myself. Just, no needles dropping, clean up. You don't got to vacuum every other day.
Yeah, exactly.
And then can you actually leave the decorations on it when you put it back in a box, or do you have to take them all off individually?
No, we do take them. We do take them off. That's really that becomes the tradition. So rather than go and cut the tree down and bring it to the house, it's actually the ornaments that are the tradition. So it's taking out all the family ornaments, things we've had for many years, things we received when we were children, putting them up on the tree, and then of course, coming up soon, all of those ornaments will start coming down, and we'll pack them all up nicely. And we'll do it again next year. But I'll take that trade any day of the year.
Yeah, that's a win for you, I would say. How long do you keep your tree up each year?
It'll be a couple weeks now.
Like I think after Christmas.
Yeah, it'll be a couple weeks. We're not, we don't take it down right away.
Do you do the 12 days, or is that just because you get a little lazy?
It's typically like probably at least the 12 days, right? Because that's the Feast of the Epiphany. Little Christmas is January 6th, and that's about the time everything starts coming down. I've got the lights up on the outside of the house. I've got the tree up, and that. I'm telling you what, as I get older and I put lights up on outside the house, much of it involves me climbing on the roof, and each passing year, it definitely feels more perilous. Like I know, I'm just like, once again, Vincent, don't get so close to the edge of the roof. Don't be an idiot. Like don't fall off of this roof putting these lights up. So it's a bit of a slow, careful process, but I'm proud of it. And when it's up, it looks good, and I plan on leaving them up as long as humanly possible before I have to get back up there and take them down.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds great. Well, Merry Christmas to you, Vince.
Merry Christmas to you. I'm so glad you had a good one. It was good. It was good to get the past 2 days off, and I'm glad you were able to do that too. It's been great. And our thanks to Dave, who's working the board today. He worked the board yesterday for Christmas, and he said it was fine. I asked him how it was. He goes, it was fine. But God bless you, Dave. Thank you for that. It's among the joys of Christmas this year, reading President Trump's posts on Truth Social. Had me cracking up yesterday for all of the obvious reasons. One, perhaps first and foremost, and most importantly, they're hilarious. Secondly, they have the benefit of being true. Listen to this. Here's President Trump yesterday. Merry Christmas to all, including to the wonderful soldiers of China who are lovingly but illegally operating the Panama Canal, where we lost 38,000 people in its building 110 years ago. Always making certain that the United States puts in billions of dollars in repair money, but will have absolutely nothing to say about anything. Also, to Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose citizens' taxes are far too high. But if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%. Their businesses would immediately double in size, and they would be militarily protected like no other country anywhere in the world. Likewise, to the people of Greenland, which is needed by the United States for national security purposes, and who want the United States to be there. And we will, exclamation point. He continues, part 2, Merry Christmas to the radical left lunatics who are constantly trying to obstruct our court system and our elections and are always going after the great citizens and patriots of the United States, but in particular, their political opponent, me. They know that their only chance of survival is getting pardons from a man who has absolutely no idea what he is doing. Also, to the 37 most violent criminals who killed, raped, and plundered like virtually no one before them, but were just given, incredibly, a pardon by sleepy Joe Biden. I refuse to wish a Merry Christmas to those lucky souls, but instead we'll say, go to hell. We had the greatest election in the history of our country. A bright light is now shining over the USA, and in 26 days, we will make America great again. Merry Christmas. He really said it all, didn't he? That man has a way with words. That's economy right there. As President Trump goes after China, he talks about Canada needing to become the 51st state, getting lower taxes and military protection. It's time to take over Greenland. They want us there. We're on the way. Merry Christmas to the radical left lunatics, but not to the violent criminals who Joe Biden just commuted the sentences of. He has a special message for them, and it's not Merry Christmas. And also, he wants you to know he's ready. In just 25 days, we will, quote, make America great again. Merry Christmas. A lot to look forward to in the future, but what about the past? This past year has been Joe Biden's last as president, thank God. Reagan Reese reviews the year next on The Vince Coglianese Show. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Thomas Catenacci joins us from the Washington Free Beacon. We talk China with him and the Communist Party there. Mary Margaret Olohan joins us at 4:30 to talk about the trans communists right here in the United States. And then at 5 o'clock, Kellen Habib-Alehi is with us. The chairman of the Virginia High School Republicans will talk to him about what the kids are up to these days when it comes to politics. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Just 25 days to go until President Trump is inaugurated. In the meantime, we're stuck with President Joe Biden, or whoever's pulling his strings. His final calendar year as president of the United States is finally and thankfully coming to a close. And for a review of that, we turn now to Reagan Reese, the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, who joins us now. Reagan, good to have you back on the show. Merry Christmas.
Hey, Vince. Merry Christmas.
All right. So Biden is wrapping things up now. How did his year go? How was his 2024?
Oh, man, Vince, it was rough. And, looking back at it, doing a review of it, it's unbelievable how many not great things happened to President Biden this year. And it's unbelievable to think that all of these happened within a year. So, I mean, from having his own staff revolt publicly against him for his Israel policy, to losing track of his defense secretary, to then dealing with Robert Hur's special counsel report, dropping out of the presidential race after his party so desperately wanted to push him out, to then, it seemed like intentionally sabotaging Kamala Harris's campaign, breaking one last promise and pardoning his son.
Yeah.
And now there's all these pieces coming out about how, who has been running the White House and how bad he has been physically for the past couple of years. It's crazy that so much could happen to a president in 365 days.
Yes, it is. It's wild. So you just mentioned a couple things that, given how much has happened, I had forgotten that it had occurred in 2024. So Lloyd Austin's disappearance had at least a portion of that story inside of this year?
Yes, that was the 1st of January, actually, when that news broke of 2024, that Lloyd Austin had been gone and had not informed the White House. And so for the first week of 2024, the White House was cleaning that up and trying to explain how they lost track of the defense secretary. And, then goes on later to say that the president, of course, was not considering firing his defense secretary despite this communication breakdown.
Yeah.
That was all at the top of this year.
It's unbelievable. And he stayed defense secretary. Everybody acted like it was totally normal. And yet he had just gone missing for weeks in order to deal with some sort of medical issue. Nobody was told, even at the upper levels of the Defense Department, allegedly.
Yeah, nope. At the Defense Department, and I remember, some of the details from the story, I believe, where Austin and some of his staff that were with him at the time, asked for the ambulance that picked him up from his home to take him into the ICU. That's crazy. He was in the ICU and the president had no idea.
Right.
Asked that the sirens and the lights not be turned on so it didn't create such a scene that would potentially notify people that would need to know. It was crazy.
It tells you a lot when you act deceptively in a moment like that. It tells you a lot about how he's been doing the rest of that job, quite unfortunately. Okay, so also the Robert Hur report came out this year. That feels like a lifetime ago, and yet it was this year. I just checked to make sure that that was right. I think it was February of this year, and that Hur report came out. That was an amazing saga because it was one of those things. It was an IQ test, really. Like, what are you going to stomach out of this White House? As the White House and people like Kamala Harris insisted, oh no, Joe Biden is of totally sound mind, but Robert Hur revealed something different, didn't he?
Yeah. So what Robert Hur revealed in his special counsel report, despite finding that President Biden did mishandle classified documents, that he wasn't going to charge the president because he felt that the jury was going to find this, senile old man who was losing his memory. And in his report, he detailed times that the president forgot when he was vice president, also forgetting the date of his late son's death. And those details and his description of President Biden kind of losing these key moments throughout their interview together caused a firestorm in the White House.
Well, the other piece that we just learned, I think it was the Wall Street Journal's reporting on the same subject. They said that Biden had been in prep sessions for at least a week, multiple hours a day, where White House aides were preparing him to meet with Robert Hur and rehearsing his answers. And he still face planted in his conversation with Robert Hur. So this is not merely something that was known inside of the White House. They were trying to figure out ways to manage around his brain.
Yeah, and you have to start to wonder, why did it take 10 months for that to come out, for that detail to come out? That seems like something that should have been reported out by these mainstream media outlets that have access to all these White House sources in February. But it seems to me, when I learned 10 months later that Biden was going through these prep sessions and that his memory was failing, that there was a lack of curiosity into the president's condition, and potentially the press wasn't really taking Robert Hur at his word for what he he saw in these interviews.
So I don't know how possible it is for you to get a read just by being in the same room with these reporters, but you are a White House correspondent, of course, Reagan Reese, and you have been to many of these press briefings. Something we heard recently from a former Washington Post journalist called Chris Cillizza, he said that he regrets not more aggressively pursuing the story of Joe Biden's failing mind and failing state. And he said the reason he didn't at the time was because every time he would bring it up, it would be cast as offensive, that the White House and the people around Joe Biden would say it'd be deeply offensive for you to say something like that in public, and that's what motivated him to stay quiet on the subject and not really pick at it at all. What do you make of that White House press briefing room where we almost never heard a question, unless it was from somebody like James Rosen? We almost never heard a question about Joe Biden's physical and mental capacity.
Yeah, I kind of roll my eyes at that apology because I think there's definitely still ways to report on the president's decline, whether or not the White House wanted to play ball, whether or not these advisors wanted to play ball. I mean, the Daily Caller did it because we could just witness the president. We could comb through White House transcripts and see how many times the White House transcript was being corrected to fix President Biden's gaffes and mistakes. And so I think that isn't really an excuse, to me at least. But then I do think that there was some sort of maybe wanting approval from the White House, or wanting to kind of please these people that I think the media sees as friends or someone that they want to impress. I've seen reporters have rather friendly relationships with the press secretary and her staff while I've been at the White House, and it's been ways that I don't think I would think are appropriate ways to act as a reporter with sources or people that you're trying to hold to account.
It was too familiar. It's too cozy, and not in any way the kind of scrutiny that represents somebody doing journalism. Instead, it's just sort of an extension of press releases on behalf of the White House, unfortunately. So I went back to one of the pieces that you wrote this year, Reagan Reese, for the Daily Caller, and you just mentioned it. This was back in April 29th of this year. Headline: White House officially claims Biden has made 148 mistakes during 2024 public remarks. You wrote this at the end of April. By that point, they had modified the transcript of anything Joe Biden said in public 148 times. And that was just by April, Reagan. By now, it must be a staggering increase since then.
I don't even know if it could have been a staggering increase, because I think the president has really kind of fallen into the shadows in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
And done a lot less remarks and spoken less off the cuff, especially as Kamala Harris became kind of front and center. But definitely, that's a perfect example of us calling out the president's decline with something that did not require us to speak to any sources within the White House. The White House is publicly posting these transcripts on their website, and it just took going through them and counting all the times that they crossed something out and bracketed in another word, sometimes changing what the president meant to say or did say completely.
Do you think Karine Jean-Pierre is embarrassed at all by the things she declared to the American people that turned out not to be true? So the big one of the year, and perhaps we should cast it as the true lie of the year. Maybe there's a competition there. One is Biden's mental state and his capacity to be president anymore, and two, perhaps just as importantly, was this insistence by Karine Jean-Pierre on a almost daily basis that Hunter Biden was not going to be pardoned by Joe. There would be no pardon. It had been ruled out entirely, and yet Biden, of course, pardoned Hunter the second that the political damage was out of the question. So how does Karine feel about all of that? Do you have any sense of it?
I don't, as of right now. I'm thinking of the last press briefing that she held, which was where she answered the most questions about Hunter and the pardon. And everybody kept asking to hear from the president. We haven't heard from the president for so long. And, can you tell us what he thinks about this pardon? Because he hasn't answered any questions on that as well. And her defense was, don't you hear what I'm saying? I am the spokesperson for the president. I, communicate his ideas. And that's certainly different than hearing from the president. But if I were her, I think I would be embarrassed that, reports of the top White House officials wanting me out, pushing me out, trying to get other organizations to offer a job to Karine Jean-Pierre have repeatedly come out. And now she's been lying, on behalf of the president. And, it doesn't seem like what she'd been posting, what she had been saying this whole time has been true. And so I think it would be embarrassing to know that you've been pushing lies on the behalf of the administration,
yes,
blatant lies that everyone knows aren't true. Meanwhile, stories about how bad you've done in your job and how everyone thinks so.
The underlying explanation for it is one of two things. Either somebody above her was lying to her and she was repeating those lies to the press and now should be absolutely furious that she was put in that position, perhaps resign over it, that she can't work in an environment like that. Or two, she knew she was lying. She just straight up knew she was lying, and then she did it anyway. It was politically expedient to lie, and she has no shame whatsoever about any of this. And here we are. You know, one of the things you mentioned, some efforts to push her out, some of the conflicts going on in that press office. One of the big ones that we kept hearing murmurs about was that John Kirby, the former Pentagon spokesman who came over to the White House and conducts what I call the adult press briefings rather than, the kids press briefing that Karine runs. When John Kirby used to step up to the microphone a lot, but we've seen reports that there's drama between the two of them, between Karine Jean-Pierre and John Kirby, that she's somehow like worried about sharing the spotlight with him. What do you know, if anything, about that, Reagan?
Yeah, I mean, we did a story earlier this year about how they had essentially been splitting time at the podium, and that Kirby had come to a lot of the briefings, and that was at the directive of the president. He wanted Kirby in there, and that when Karine actually, got the job of press secretary, it's been reported that one of the things the president said to her was, don't worry, John will be there to help you or to look over your shoulder. One thing I think that is really revealing into their relationship. Well, two things. We hardly have seen Kirby in the briefing room over the past couple of months, but when he does come in, Karine still calls on reporters for him. She stands at his side and picks who gets to be called on. And, he knows most of the reporters in the room by name. He doesn't need her to, pick out which outlets he's going to talk to. And it's something that actually Jake Sullivan has, put an end to himself. And Jake Sullivan will call on reporters himself when he comes into the briefing room. But Kirby is still at the side, still has Karine at his side. And that it's been reported that is something that frustrates Kirby. And it's something that Jean-Pierre kind of does out of insecurity because Kirby is good at his job and liked by the president.
Yeah. What do you, finally, Reagan Reese, what, if anything, do you anticipate out of Caroline Leavitt? She's the incoming press secretary for President Trump. I don't know. We've had, through the years as Trump's had different press secretaries, not all of them did press briefings, but I anticipate she will, I presume. What sort of expectations do you have coming into this new administration?
Yeah, I anticipate that she's going to be doing briefings. I think one of the wonderful things about President Trump is that he's so visible and answers questions that there's really no need for a spokesperson to come and answer questions on his behalf because he will answer them himself. So for that reason, I think that one of the things that we might see Caroline used for is kind of swatting down whatever hysteria we're going to see from the mainstream media and twisting of words. I mean, we already saw them really lie about what President Trump said about Liz Cheney and the whole firing squad narrative. And so I really see Caroline being used that way, especially with all the talk about rearranging the briefing room and just kind of taking it to the mainstream media and giving power back to independent media. That's kind of my prediction.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what happens, and I'm glad you'll have a front row seat to all of it to ask President Trump all these questions. If he holds true to his old style, which is to do a lot of Q&As on his way to Marine One, you'll have a lot of FaceTime with President Trump. I'm eager for that. Reagan Reese, thank you very much. Great to talk to you today. All right, let's go to Frank in Manassas, line 1. Hello, Frank. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Frank. Hey there, sir.
I am wondering why the Republican Congress hasn't impeached Biden for not being able to be president because of his mental decline. Mm-hmm. The Democrats impeached Trump for false reasons, and here they have a very good reason to impeach him, and they still have time to do it before January 20th. And they can also Harris for not calling for the 25th Amendment to be enacted so that he could be replaced because he has endangered our national security.
Yes. Well, that's right. So those are two great questions. Why didn't Republicans impeach him yet? It's because they're weak and have thin margins. That's the answer. And why didn't Kamala move to invoke the 25th Amendment alongside the cabinet? That's because the Democrats have a strong hand on their party and kept that from happening. They decided they liked the world where they had the incompetent figurehead But how did that serve them? Very, very poorly, it turns out. And thank goodness the American voters stepped in. All right, stay with us. Coming up on the Vince Coglianese Show, Thomas Catenacci will be with us as China doesn't cease to meddle in our country. He's got the update on that.